I was searching social media to find another person to talk about this topic with, and I found Tori Peyton's page. She was talking about her experience with an eating disorder and the entire experience, and she's really trying to help people go through the experience alone, which is, or not go through the experience alone, which is the whole purpose of this podcast is to talk about hard topics in hopes that people feel less alone. So it was the perfect matchup when I saw you. So, Tori, thank you for joining. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for reaching out. I'm so happy to talk about such an important and not often discussed topic, especially in the days of like Ozempic and the lack of body positivity. So I'm really excited.
Yes, we are in a strange time right now. It's like the fluctuation. Sometimes it's up and everybody's body positive and then we go back down and it's the culture shift that keeps kind of moving and flowing. And I had a episode with a incredibly intelligent woman named Lindsay Kite, and she studied this entire structure of what it looks like for body image and the way that it's shaped us in women's culture. And it's what wanted me to do this episode specifically on disordered eating because it's such an
Mhm.
important topic. So, Tori, we're going to start kind of diving in super deep right away, but tell me about you. Tell me about your disordered eating journey, where this all started for you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So honestly, I think it started when I was 7. I'm pretty open talking about all the different traumatic things I've gone through just because I think in talking about them, I can kind of reclaim my own story. And so when I was 7, I was actually sexually assaulted. And from that moment on, I just had a really complicated relationship with my body. It caused me to have like just this feeling of disconnection and this feeling like I always, in some ways, needed to punish my body. I don't know exactly how to describe that in super articulate language, but it was just like a way of navigating the world that felt very disconnected. And so I ended up becoming an athlete throughout high school. I played competitive volleyball. And then into college, I played competitive volleyball. And once I quit volleyball, I was about 19 or 20 years old. I didn't end up finishing volleyball because I got injured. And once I quit, I just had no idea like how to exist. I had been pushing my body for so hard for so long. And through that, fueling super adequately, making sure I wanted to be the best at my sport. And so, from the fueling perspective, everything was good until I stopped playing. And then I was like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to exist. Like, I'm not an athlete anymore. I don't have an athlete's body. Like, what type of body am I supposed to have? And so naturally, I went to social media to see what the other girls were doing at that time. And a lot of them were like skinny white sorority girls, to be honest. And so I thought, that's who I'm supposed to be. Like, that is what a feminine woman at this time means. Like, that's what she looks like. And so I did my absolute hardest to lose as much weight as I possibly can in as short a period of time as I possibly could. So when I was, 20 years old, I think I dropped like 30 or 40 pounds just really, really quickly. And from there, what started is like wanting to lose weight to look good became a really deep and dark obsession that lasted 5 years. And it wasn't until May of 2023 that I was like, you know what? I have to make a change. Like, I'm 25. I feel like I haven't lived any of my 20s because I'm so obsessed with my body, with managing food. And I don't want to live anymore. Like, it got to that point. Like, a lot of times we don't think about the implications of restriction and the point it can get your body and your mind to. But yeah, I didn't want to keep going. And so 2 years ago, I chose to recover. Since then, it's been ups and downs, but mainly just feeling so grateful for for just like the words don't really describe. Like, I'm just very grateful for having been at the lowest of possible lows to now having hope, and not just having hope, but being able to share it with other people. Like, it is such a gift, and I'm so grateful, however weird it sounds, to have gone through that so that I can help other people through it.
The craziest thing about disordered eating stories, like I have another person who's on this episode with you, and the vast differences, like there isn't a one size fits all when it comes to this and what it looks like and how it appears. And hers was kind of this natural progression. But what I can notice is a lot of it is societal influence. Like outside of your really horrible experience, which breaks my heart for you, but something that then set you even further on a different path, is just heartbreaking to think that that started this for you. But looking at bigger picture in this particular moment and question I want to go down, like the societal impact is something that I think is really difficult for us to understand and address. You're sitting here and able to say, I saw this and this is what this looked like, and I can see that now. But when you were in it, were you ever thinking, oh, this is not actually probably very healthy, or this is not what I should be doing? Was there ever this battle that you were having internally, or was it just so clear cut, like this is who I'm supposed to be because that's who they are?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I've actually been reflecting on this a lot lately, just randomly, and thinking about how do we as women identify ourselves. And I think I've come to the conclusion that we either put ourselves in two boxes because society tells us to, and one is appearance and two is performance. And so I was so caught up with on the volleyball side, fueling like my ego, my identity based off of how I was performing at volleyball. So once that was gone, once my like feeling of sense of worth was gone from volleyball, I was like, okay, I don't have that. So now let me focus on appearance. And if you go on social media today, you'll see plenty of people on Skinny Talk, but also on Instagram that are telling you a woman is supposed to be pretty. Like that is her role as a human being. You need to be pretty and you need to be soft spoken and you need to be kind and just all of these expectations for women that really just put us in a box. And you're either the productivity girl or you're the like cute, pretty girl. And so, yeah, I would say 100% like during that time, because volleyball was gone, I was like, okay, it's all about how I look at this point. And it's really scary that I feel like we're at a point in history where all of that is kind of like coming back again, where like the skinny influencer is in again. It's really terrifying for people who are trying to recover or heal from those things right now.
What has social media been like? You're mentioning the skinny influencer, and I
Yeah.
love how you addressed what I just said. And so thank you for going there. I know all the things I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you about are just going to be deep and emotional. So
Oh,
I'm
that's fine. We love deep and emotional.
this is good. This is how we talk about these things. You're talking about the skinny influencer. As someone who went through it and is now in the post side of it, what is social media like for you? What is that experience like for you? And making sure, I don't know if triggered's the right word, or making sure that you're just not impacted by social media in that same way anymore.
Oh my goodness. It is crazy recovering and going through that process of healing your relationship with your body and being on the other side of it for the most part and seeing how many things you thought were normal that were actually disordered. Like the what I eat in a days where girls are eating literally an avocado toast in a smoothie and the fitness influencers that work out at the gym multiple hours a day and barely eat, or just the girls who are like constantly focused on like being the absolute thinnest that they can be. Like all of these things I thought was so normal. And I wanted the abs. I wanted to be super thin and skinny and pretty because not only is that what society was telling me women should look like for women, but like it told me that's how like men were going to like me too. And so I was like, oh, okay, like I have to look that way. And so now, kind of being on the other side of it, I can take a step back and be like, wow, that is actually insane. Like you straight up were trying to change everything about you to fit this like box that isn't even going to allow you to fulfill like your purposes and dreams and amazing things in life. And so now I think I'm easily can take a step back and be like, Tori, rein it in. That's not for you. We know where that led you. We know the path that that took you. You have to focus on like what is your purpose on this earth. And so super easy to compare. Yes, I still get little triggers or like little comparison nudges, but I always try to bring it back to like, okay, comparison is the thief of joy. I have no idea what their life is like behind the screen. Like, what am I doing? Like, how am I helping people? Like, how am I making a difference in the world?
Yeah, that's a good reminder for people to have because social media, I work in it. It's my job. I understand it on so many levels, but I am someone who can look at it and say there's good and there is bad. And that's just the commonality with social media is understanding both of those sides. And it is hard for me to understand. So this is why I have people like you that come on and share this. When you were in this moment of just the very deep, you mentioned you were like at your lowest point.
Yeah.
What was that moment like for you when this was all happening? And it was like finally came to its volcano.
Yeah. You know, I honestly need to like go through a period of therapy where I can really just sit in how horrible those 5 years were. To be honest, I block it out because that's how bad it was. Like every single day I woke up, I had this voice in my head screaming at me, telling me I needed to be skinnier. I was worthless. I wasn't pretty enough. I needed to control my food. And it essentially took away my health physically, my health mentally, everything I liked about myself, my personality. I lost friends. Like every day was genuinely a living hell. And I know that's not the experience for everyone with disordered eating, but for me at this period where I had a severe eating disorder, like it was just terrible. And so honestly, like everything just came to a head one night in May where I was alone at home. I felt pretty isolated because this stuff really isolates you. And I was engaging in a bunch of negative behaviors like binging and purging. And I was like, I think this is it. Like, this is the moment. I was sitting on the bathroom floor and I was like, this is the moment where I change things and I decide I'm going to try to live a good life. And that might mean putting on some weight, or like, this is it. And I'm just going to be done. Like, I'm going to let this disease consume me and essentially kill me, because that's what eating disorders or like not fueling your body will do, like physically to people. And so in that moment, I just felt like a whisper, honestly, from God, because I'm a Christian, where he was just like, you've got to change. Like, this is not what I had for you. This is not it. Like, there's something so much bigger for you out there, but you have to change. I know you're terrified, but you have to.
I've had my own personal super low moments, but hearing you recount yours, I know how hard that darkness is. Like it doesn't matter what that trauma was, but to feel at your lowest moment, your darkest, and you're like, this is the end of my story. This is the end of my life. I know that that place is so hard to then come back from. Even if you do get that whisper, even if you do get that little jolt saying, hey, we have to change this.
Yeah.
Because not only are you in this moment right here where it's the darkest moment ever, but you have to climb out of it. And the climb feels like Mount Everest. You're
Yeah.
never going to get finish or get there. So now going from this lowest moment, what did your climb kind of start to look like from that bathroom floor? And you got this whisper and you're trying to figure out, okay, I hear you, but what am I supposed to do to change this?
Yeah. I think I think in that moment, that was kind of like, I'm all in. I think everyone has to have a moment where they're like, I'm all in. Like, I'm not going back. I just made a promise to myself that day. I'm not going back to my eating disorder. Like, I refuse. And so, ever since that day, it's been a slow, like, pruning of myself where I'm just slowly taking out the negative and slowly inserting the positive. And so it wasn't like one day, the next day I woke up and everything was better. But the next day I woke up and I was like, I'm not going back. And I'm going to do whatever I can every day to move one step forward. And I think anyone who's healing from something like food and body image issues, just know that it's not a clear path forward. It's not like one step every single day, all the time. It might be one step forward, 5 steps back, another 5 steps back, and then 10 steps forward. Like, it's so messy because we're imperfect human beings and it's just not going to be a perfect linear journey. But the number one thing that helped me the most was genuinely believing in myself and being kind to myself. I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds very cliche, but for so long I had that inner critic voice that I was listening to, and it really just made me feel terrible about myself. And so I decided from that low moment on, the one thing I would do is I would believe in myself and I would tell myself that I can do it, because I truly believe in the power of like your mind and you're like working towards just trying to reframe that negative inner critic into a positive one in your mind can do so much for you. And so I know I kind of touched on a bunch of different things, but that's what I would say. Like, it wasn't just like a snap and everything was good. It was just a long, slow, tedious process of curiosity and grace to myself.
And that's so important to recognize because healing is never a linear journey. It's like circular and square and all the shapes you want to come up with. That's kind of what healing looks like.
Yeah.
And it's really important for people to hear that from somebody who went through it. So thanks for sharing that. And also, it's not crazy at all that you were talking about the positive mindset and understanding and believing in yourself. One of our biggest tools as human beings is like recognizing the power and strength we have within ourselves to do something. And to your point, mindset matters. And
Yeah.
we hear it and it sounds to everybody, it's so woo woo. We're like, oh, your mind. Yeah, no, that doesn't matter. But it does. Like at the end of the day, your brain is part of your body and it's trying to help you.
Yeah.
So super powerful stuff right there. As you're going through these, maybe it was on the front end, that very low moment, maybe on the healing side. What's something you wish you would have known sooner throughout this entire process? Like something, if somebody's going through it right now and you're like, dang, I wish me at that moment could have known this. What would that look like for you to tell someone else?
Yeah, I think honestly, weight gain can be such a big fear with people when they're recovering from something like disordered eating or eating disorders. And I just wanted that girl to know, who was like terrified for 5 years of gaining weight, that it's really not that big of a deal. And I know that sounds so just like I'm kind of throwing off people's fears and saying they're not important. That's not what I mean at all. I just mean like the life that you're going to get is just no comparison to the weight that you're going to gain. Like, your life is going to be so much fuller and better, and your personality will come back, relationships will be healed, like things will be so much better. And I wish I'd told that girl who was so timid to start healing, like, things genuinely will get better. Like, recovery and healing is way better, even the worst day, than the best day you ever had when you were struggling.
That's so powerful. You mentioned the moments where you would take like 5 steps forward and 10 steps back, or vice versa. I want someone to hear your words very much so in this process because there's probably going to be a lot of people out there that are listening and would want to give up in the process of healing. And sometimes hearing somebody else have these just very normal human moments of like, I'm not perfect and I went through this and it was all across the board is really important to hear, especially when they're either choosing to start to heal or in the process of healing or considering it. Like, can you walk through a little bit for someone who's maybe in one of those spaces and they're like, gosh, I don't think I'm ready for that battle?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, the most helpful thing like during my process was just remembering like what I was fighting for. If you don't know what you're fighting for, then it's going to be kind of like a pointless battle. You're not fighting to make sure that your therapist or your dietitian feels good about the progress you've made. You're not fighting so that your family and friends won't be worried about you anymore. And you're not fighting for other comments from other people about like how healthy you look and like how much better life looks on you. You're really fighting for your true self. Like, that is what healing is about. It's connecting with your authentic true self and exploring like who that person is. I had no idea, because I was so obsessed with like my eating disorder, with my body. Like, I had no idea who I was, especially in my 20s, like when I'm supposed to be figuring out like my identity and who I am. I had no clue. And so much of my healing journey, I would hold on to like, no, I'm fighting to connect with that person, to give her the life she deserves, and like to find the things that really truly make me happy in this life. And so I will say, like, there were times when I would wake up and I was like, I have absolutely no motivation today to do anything pro recovery, to help myself in any way. And the only thing that kept me going was that, like, I wanted to feed that true self. Like, every day you're either feeding shame, you're feeding going backwards, you're feeding like that negative side, that negative inner critic, or you're feeding your authentic true self. So I think, like, if you can just take a step back and think about what is the actual battle happening here. I think it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm just eating food, or I'm just exercising. Like, we can get very nitpicky and like physical about it. But no, it's honestly spiritual. Like, this is about like who you are and fighting for who you are. So that really kept me going, I think.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, that's important for most things in life too, because we like to think that whenever we recover from something or we start healing or we start growing, that we're kind of doing it for somebody else or for something else,
Yeah.
when really the journey should be about you and your experience and helping you. So that's good advice for everything, but I'm so glad I had you kind of go down that road. In the beginning of this too, you shared like the starting point of your story, which was a very unfortunate traumatic situation that happened to you. Did you also have to heal that aspect and what happened to you to start to heal your disordered eating habits? Like, was that kind of coincided together or were they separated? Because this is the first situation in story that I've heard where something like that has spearheaded a situation and a path for somebody. So I'm curious to know because I am positive it's probably and unfortunately not uncommon. So I
Yeah.
would love to know like what that experience was like for you in case somebody else out there may have something similar happening.
Yeah, I think as I've kind of learned and grown over the past couple of years in this space, like, I would argue that all of our hurts or our negative habits, like an addiction, like an eating disorder, really is kind of fostered from originally from trauma. And it doesn't have to be anything like capital T trauma like I experienced. It can be something as small as like a comment that was made to you when you were very young, or maybe like a parent did something when you were younger and punished you in a way that like wasn't ideal. And so that just for whatever reason, your brain stuck onto that and it was very traumatic. Um, Trauma also isn't what happens to us, it's how we interpret those events. And so our brain can be, really impacted by little and big things that happen to us. And so I think if you find yourself in a space of disordered eating or an eating disorder, a lot of the time, like, the work that you have to do is reflecting on the past and the past traumas and how that impacted your sense of identity. Because these disorders at the end of the day are all about identity. They're about like control and where you're putting your sense of self. And I think when we have a sense of self that is rooted in my worth is unchanging, like, no matter what I do in this life, I have inherent self worth. When we have that perspective, it's harder for trauma or those little things to come in and kind of like dig at us and dig at our core. Whereas like when we do let those things impact us, we can go to all these negative habits for a sense of control, for a sense of identity and purpose. I would say most people who struggle with eating disorders, disordered eating, like we talked about the societal impacts, they're looking to society to tell them that they're worthy because they're small enough and they're worthy because they're pretty enough. And so when you have that inherent sense of self-worth, and work through those past traumatic events, I think that's when the real healing begins. Like, at the root of all these issues, the full healing happens.
I am a big believer in fighting for the root cause of anything when it comes to issues. And it sounds like that is very much a similar way to heal a similar situation like yours. So thank you for getting into that.
Yeah.
I do want to look at your life now because we talked about social media and how that can have some triggering moments, and you've done really well to work through those. But what about in everyday life? Like, I'm picturing two friends. One has gone through a similar experience to yours. One's like me who can understand and be there, but I may not quite be able to put myself in your shoes. So, how can someone like me better do that for people like you in everyday life? Like, what are experiences that happen in everyday life that could be triggering or that could be hurtful? that would not help someone like you on their journey to constantly healing and doing better?
I love this question. And I think in what you're talking about, it's not just being like proactive and dealing with people who have had eating disorders in the past. It's also being proactive in the sense of like, we don't want to trigger anyone and cause a future eating disorder for them either. And so I
Yes.
think just being very mindful of like, first and foremost, this might be obvious to some people, but body comments, like that is not helpful to tell someone, oh, it looks like you lost a little bit of weight, or wow, it looks like you've gained weight. Like neither of those things is helpful information. It doesn't tell you anything about the identity of that person. It just tells you about the shell and the shape and size of their shell. I would also say, you know, making sure that like you're fueling properly around people. I mean, I know this is like, again, that might seem obvious, but a lot of girls, like, even when you go to breakfast at a coffee shop, a lot of girls will just be like, you know what, I'm just going to grab coffee. I don't need to eat. And it's crazy because little things like that can actually be things that make other girls like me like self-conscious. And it's not, I do want to be careful, it's not anyone else's responsibility to not trigger me. Like my recovery is my own and I have to protect it and know what's best for me. But I think like as empathetic human beings, we should want to protect the people around us. And so obviously on the body side, like not making comments, on the food side, like fueling adequately and properly and not making comments about food or what other people are eating. And then I think too, like this one is small, um, but it's something I've really tried to be more intentional about is even commenting in general about appearance. I know this might sound a little bit nuanced, but you can say you like someone's dress or you can say you love their style or their outfit, but do you need to say like, oh my gosh, that dress brings out your figure, or oh my gosh, like your boobs look so good in that? Like, well, I don't know why as human beings we feel the need to like pick apart people's bodies and somehow like compliment them or insult them based off of how their body looks. Like just all of that in general, like I want to see humans for who they are. Like I don't want to just see them as like, well, that person exists in a bigger body or that person looks terrible because they're way too skinny. Like that doesn't serve anybody. So I think doing your absolute best to just like take a step back and be like, okay, how do I view people? Like, do I view them based off of appearance or like how they look at any point in time? Or am I viewing them as a human, as someone deserving of respect and who has inherent worth? I think that's just a really helpful perspective to have, like in general. And I even practice on TV shows, by the way. Like I used to always comment, like, oh my gosh, that guy's so hot, or like that girl's so hot, and whatever, whatever. And now I try to take a step back and I'm like, what do I like about their character? Like, what do I like about their impact in the show? And again, that might seem crazy to some people, but it really does rewire your brain and how you view other people, which is really cool.
Well, and this question really brings out the compassion of human beings, right? We have gotten away a little bit from having compassion for others. And of course, is there moments of inconvenience in being compassionate and empathetic? Yeah, of course there are. But it's more important for me to be inconvenienced than somebody else just
Yeah.
for the sake of understanding somebody else's story. And you and I seem very in the same mindset with that and the idea of how that is. But it's always why I like asking questions like that in regards to hard topics, because even having this conversation and somebody sitting here and hearing it, it just might make them think a little bit twice before they say or do something. Because it's really easy to go about our own lives and not think about the things that other people have gone through. Of course, right? Everybody's lives are really difficult, but it's also part of being a human being is having compassion for others and understand that everybody's going through stuff. So what you said is really important. And I also think it's very important in girlfriend groups, guy friend groups too. They just are not as unfortunately equipped to talk about these emotional things. And women tend to go in this direction. So it's not gender specific, but more often than not, women are the ones who are sitting there having these conversations or not eating. And I've been at, I cannot tell you how many dinners where somebody is eating and it doesn't matter. She's like, I'm probably her. I'm the one who's like, yeah, give me 8 apps. I don't care. Let me have all of it. And then I have another friend who's like, I just would like a salad. And I'm like, what are we doing? No, we are
Yeah.
eating. This is a girl's dinner. And I try to be encouraging, but I also know that in general can be triggering because you're trying to help, but you don't really know if it's helping or not. You're just not sure because it's part of that. But I think so much of what you said is in regards to just being compassionate and having a little bit of care and tact when we handle things that could potentially be sensitive.
Yeah, and I think too, if you have friends, like something that is so important to me is female community, like women supporting and uplifting other women. And when I tell you, one of the best parts of my healing journey was my best friend and I were always really close, but just realizing throughout this, through the weight gain, through me looking different at different periods of time, she liked me more the more weight I gained because I got my personality back. Like she liked me. And like I could literally cry talking about it because like it just meant so much. Like your friends don't care what you look like. Your friends care about you. True friends. True friends care about you. And I think that's beautiful and so encouraging for people who are struggling because you don't have to try so hard. Like you just be you. Like you asked me earlier, like what advice would I give? It's genuinely just be you. Like throw off all the expectations, the need for appearances, and just like try to find out who you are and like run full speed ahead with that person. Like,
And to your point, so much of what I receive on social media, because I'm a huge foodie. I love food, like big fan. I will post about everything and
I love
I
that.
like huge, I just like eating food. I like enjoying what I'm eating. Even when I'm eating healthier, I'm like, how can I make like I just did it the other day. I turned puppy chow from Chex to blueberries. I'm like, okay, well
Oh
this
my,
is healthier.
that sounds good.
Right? And I was like, this is healthier, but I'm still getting what I want out of this, which is like
Yeah.
an enjoyable experience. But it's so funny, the comments that are constantly coming. It's like, you eat so much food. How are you still so small? I'm like, guys, one, you're not seeing me work out all the time because I don't feel the need you have to see it. And two, I have decently healthy genes. So, like, this is all relative. But also, why are you commenting on how much I'm eating just because I really love food? It's
Yeah.
even like just the comments around food and exercise, not just about our looks, which we touched on, but it's anything in general that could insinuate any direction about somebody's experience in their life. And it is nuanced to your point. Like it is, right? These are the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah.
But
And that's such a good, and sorry, but I love what you just said. Like, I wish I could bottle it up because I think to your point, it is about appearance in some ways, but it is kind of what I was talking about, the performance aspect. It's almost like food and exercise have been moral deciders of if we are good enough in society or not. Like how well we perform as women is based off of like how much you work out and how healthy you eat. And I think that's psychotic. Like that says nothing about me as a person. Like I could literally be a criminal, but like I'm cool because I'm skinny and eat healthy food and work out a lot. Like it makes no sense to me.
it is true. It's honestly like now that you said it out loud, it's kind of like the Ted Bundy thing. Everybody finds Ted Bundy super attractive, but like, guys, he's a horrible human being.
Oh, horrible. Yeah.
Like, pop culture is wild, but it reminded me of that when you were talking about that. And we could go down this rabbit hole all day, and I love it. But Tori, I always like to end on something that's either whether it's motivational or advice or something that maybe we didn't touch on that you really want to make sure people hear. So I'm gonna give you the floor, and you can kind of end this how you feel like super passionate about.
Yeah. I think the biggest like superpower, if I'm going to use that word, is throughout your entire healing journey is leaning into grace and leaning away from shame. I truly believe that like we have like a negative inner critic in our head that is going to want us to embrace shame, to tell us that like if we make one mistake or if we're not doing something perfectly, we should punish ourselves or we should just give up altogether. And that people around us are ashamed of us. And I just don't think that's true. That's one narrative that part of your brain is telling you. I think we really need to lean into the narrative of grace and of curiosity because that is the only way you'll get better. You're not going to get better shaming yourself. You're not going to get better saying, I wish I'd done that. I should have done that. You're going to get better by being your number one biggest cheerleader and advocating for yourself. And I wholeheartedly believe that because I've seen in my own journey months in which I would fall into a deep depression because I was so ashamed of XYZ, and then pulling myself out of it because I was like, you know what? No, like that's going to lead me to death and destruction in my brain. Like I have to be positive. I have to fight for myself and for my happiness and be my best friend. I truly believe that. So, yeah, I think that's the last thing I would say to people.
Oh, that's so good. You gave us so many great bits of wisdom and understanding. Thank you for walking us through your whole experience and sharing things to help others while they go through or are on this through or in the same situation you are. I just really appreciate your vulnerability and being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.